I'll start off with my introduction. I'm Brett McIntyre with Polk County Emergency Management. I head up the training and exercise part of our organization. And I've got Lynn here, our 911 coordinator.
Yeah, you covered it. I'm Lynn Tizzoli, the 911 coordinator.
Lynn has been doing a lot of work with our program here for Alert Iowa over the last couple of months. And we're going to highlight some of the changes and updates that we've made to that with our countywide comprehensive emergency plan. So a couple of the things that we want to cover today with the topic of our Alert Iowa, and especially the wireless emergency alerts, or WIAs, as you're going to hear us call them a bit, is how do they work? How do you activate them? How do you ask us to get that messaging sent out? And where does it fit in planning or response? Which one is the right one? When do we need to start thinking about using those different types of messaging? A lot of this can be found in our comprehensive emergency plan. ESF 15 is the public information part of it. We have a subsection there, B, that is emergency alerts and public warning. That went before the Emergency Management Commission this February and got approved. What is in this part of the annex, it's on our website. You go to the Our Plans page, you can find the comprehensive emergency plan. You can read through this if you want. Really, it's just a listing of the different types of warning and alert systems that we have in Polk County. We do have 5 of them that are kind of the biggies that are highlighted in that annex. The first 3 are really, really blunt mass notification tools. We're not going to cover any of that today. There's the emergency alert system, EAS, which is the old school on your television, on the radio, cranky data tone noises that we're all familiar with. The thing about that, if we ever had to use that, we can request it. That's a very bad day, though, because that has no geographic specificity restriction on it. So it will go to the entire broadcasting area. So you think about however far the radio station goes, how far the alert is going to go. If we send it through the TV stations like that, Channel 8, Channel 13, Channel 5, they go from Missouri to Minnesota and are basically 66 counties wide. So any activation of the EAS is almost statewide. It's almost all of central Iowa at that point. NOAA weather radio, we can send all hazards radio is the official title of that. We can send civil emergency messages through there, hazardous materials warnings. Get in touch with us. We can send those through there. But again, those have a limited amount of ability to narrow the reach, and that would be at basically at a minimum countywide. We can't get any more specific than that. Outdoor warning sirens, again, as we all know, have those broken up into chunks by our dispatch centers, our PSAPs, so we can get partial counties. But again, blunt tools, not a lot of information there. So we will focus today on Alert Iowa and the WIAs, which we can start to get down to the jurisdiction level, maybe to sub-jurisdiction, or even in the case of a few of these situations, neighborhood levels. Lynn, I'll pass it over to you to give us the kind of overview here.
Yeah, so Alert Iowa and WIA for a long time have the terms have been used interchangeably. So we're going to try and keep them separate today. So Alert Iowa, that's a system that users need to opt in to receive the message. There's a way you can text a link or text a short code to sign up. The problem with that, though, is there's no address tied to that phone number. They're just signing up to be on a list. We'll get into geolocating later, but if there's no address, then it's not going to filter that when dispatch or us sends a message. And then users, if they do sign up through the portal, through smart911.com, they can choose if they want text, phone call, or email, and which numbers they want it on, things like that. And if they're signed up through there, it does make them add at least one address to geofilters would work for those users. When we send the messages, we can link to additional information. So we have the option now to add to like a text message, something that will expand. They can click the link and it will give more information. So we're not as limited as before to the 160 or so characters. Like I said, there's some geofencing, but again, it depends on how the person signed up. That can cause some issues. So if we want to send an alert just in one city, say Ankeny needs to send something, and we create that geofence in Ankeny. If someone signed up via SMS, so they don't have an address assigned to it, then it's going to send it to every one of those people, whether or not the alert is relevant to them. And it will follow your phone's do not disturb or silent settings. So it's not something that's ever going to override it. If someone has their phone on do not disturb, then they're not going to get it until they pick their phone up again and turn it off. We, on the other hand, these are opt out. Every single phone device that can get it is automatically opted into it, and someone has to go into their settings. It's a several step process to get to that setting and opt out. So there's not a lot of people that have opted out. There is some user choice on the alerts. So there's governmental alerts, public safety alerts, and then presidential alerts. Presidential ones you cannot opt out of, but the other two people can choose whether or not they want to receive them. It's cell tower based, but doesn't use cellular data. So it doesn't matter if someone's phone has cellular service, has minutes or time or any throttling, any of that, it's going to go there. And generally you're not able to silence them. So I'm sure all of us have experienced an Amber Alert, a tornado siren, something like that. That's exactly what these are too. So it will blast through and get that message out. With Alert Iowa, we kind of talked about the lists a little bit. The users have to opt in to not only the program, but the list that they want to receive information from. So if someone texted in for the tornado list, unless they go into their account on the website, create one, and say, I also want public safety alerts, they're only going to get the tornado alerts. So there's a lot of, we need the permission from them to be able to send it to them. And that is one of the reasons that the reach isn't quite as much as we thought it was. The WIAs, on the other hand, again, people have to take the time to opt out of them. So most people haven't gone and done that. And most people do see the value in those types of messages. So they also don't want to.
So when we get into a little bit here of deciding which one is more proper to send, we do exercise some restraint with the WIAs, because while we can essentially force them to the vast majority of phones within the county, the more often we do that, the more people will get annoyed with that and maybe take the time to dig through their settings and figure out how to turn those off. Again, when you think about a good example of a WIA that we've all received are Amber Alerts. So when we talk about the kind of the steps that we're going to go through here a little bit later on how we decide what to send, we will take time of day, what the threat is, all of that into account. Because if we're pushing something to your phone that's going to override volume settings, and it's either going to give you a very aggressive vibration or loud noises, is that something we want to push out in the middle of the night? Is that going to be helpful? Again, it depends on what the threat is, what action we're asking everyone to take. So a little bit of background on the Alert Iowa program. It's available through the state, through Iowa Homeland Security and Emergency Management. It's paid for there. So again, it's not something that you have to subscribe to in terms of fees at this point. It's administered locally at the county level across the state. Almost all counties are enrolled in it at this point, and it gives us the ability to send messages to any enrolled participants within our county, within Polk County. As Lynn said, if they've signed up for the list, we can reach them in Polk County. But if you think about kind of the history of these alerts in Polk County, some of you might remember something called Code Red. Some of you might remember Smart 911. There's Alert Iowa now. I'm going to hand it over to Lynn here at this point. These have all kind of been around at different points. They've merged a lot. Some of them do the same things. Code Red is still something we hear muscle memory from. Alert Iowa has taken that over, but Smart 911 is really what is running this. Alert Iowa is just a branding wrapper, right?
Yeah. So Smart 911, our 3 communication centers did have Smart 911 on their consoles. That went away a couple of years ago. And something that really wasn't totally understood was that Smart 911 itself never went away. Just this one program on their consoles. So through Smart 911 is where these signups happen. So we are trying to push this again. We kind of stopped again because we didn't quite understand what was going on, but we're pushing it again because these Smart 911 accounts are what drive these lists. So someone signs up for Smart 911, anyone that was signed up before, they put that information in there. The PSAPs or our communication centers and 911 centers can still receive all of the information that they could before. They just don't have a handy little program dedicated to it. But they can still receive all the information someone puts in. So these profiles are really extensive. You can add in like layouts of your home in case there's a fire, where your children's bedrooms are, pictures of your pets, anything you want, you can add and they will receive that information. So it's really a great thing for people to sign up for. But yeah, it's the branding is there. So Alert Iowa is the same thing as Smart 911. It's just branded as Alert Iowa. Every county has their own landing page essentially for it. So if the link that we send out says Polk County Alert Iowa, it's really just, like he said, a wrapper around Smart 911. Because if you go to the Smart 911 website and sign up there, you get all the same things. So what really matters is the information you put into it, because that will show you what lists you're eligible to sign up for.
And when the public does go back, if they decide that they want to subscribe to additional alerts or change their subscription settings, it is through, they will go to a Smart 911 landing page. And so that sometimes throws a public, and that's another outreach that we're working on.
And Smart 911 too will send every 6 months, it will send a reminder to people to review their settings. Have you moved? Has anything changed? Do you want to sign up for these different lists? So that's another great thing about Smart 911. The strengths for Alert Iowa include the fact that there's the multiple methods and people can choose what they want or how they want to be notified, that text message, a phone call, or email, or all three. You can put in multiple phone numbers, so you can sign your children up, on your account, and so your children will get all the same messages too.
Other things you can do with it, you can add multiple addresses that you want to monitor in places that you spend a significant amount of time. I have my house in there down by the airport and the National Guard. I could put in 1907 Carpenter Avenue because I spend a lot of time here, and I want to know if an Alert Iowa message is sent for here. If you have elderly relatives or friends, again, that's one of the things we push during preparedness months and the heat, extreme heat and temperature plans to check in on elderly and vulnerable. If there's someone that you are one of those kind of go-to partners or emergency contacts and you want to evaluate their address, you can put that in there as well. So if you live in West Des Moines, but you're a caretaker for a parent or an elderly relative in Altoona, you put in their address, you'll get things to your phone that, hey, something's going on in Altoona if we've got an Alert Iowa that's been sent. So it's a powerful tool in that sense. The other piece about this is when we get to the weather warnings. This is really probably where Alert Iowa shines the most. Like Lynn just went through, you can subscribe as a text message, but you can also pick that phone call message where you will get an actual automated phone call that will read you the tornado warning or severe thunderstorm warning, flash flood, blizzard, and high wind. Those are the 6 weather warnings that come automatically through Alert Iowa. Dispatch doesn't have to touch it. Emergency management doesn't have to touch it. It happens as soon as the Weather Service issues it. And if you've got it on there you've turned on that I want a phone call, that's another kind of easy way when we talk about that kind of Swiss cheese layering of how you're getting your messages, not relying on one simple method. You can turn your phone up and your ringer up overnight and get that phone call in the middle of the night that's going to wake you up. Again, we try to push people to a bunch of different ways so they're not just relying on sirens or thinking the siren's going to wake them up. This is a very easy tool. Hey, you get on there, say you want a phone call whenever there's a tornado warning, and we've got severe weather in the forecast overnight, leave your ringer up, you're going to get that phone call. The difference here between Alert Iowa and wireless emergency alerts is something that I do want to point out. We all get wireless emergency alerts for tornado warnings. Every tornado warning, you're going to get a WIA. If you're signed up for Alert Iowa, you're going to get both. You're going to get a text from Alert Iowa or a phone call, whatever it is, but you're also going to get that WIA alert where it sends those kind of EAS sounds on your phone. You'll get that, or it'll start shaking really obnoxiously. The place that this starts to diverge a little bit is on the severe thunderstorm warnings. If you're relying on wireless emergency alerts for that, say you're going out camping or a campsite, Alert Iowa, if you've got an address in there for it, could send you a message. If you go in and register the campground you're going to be at, you'll get that message. On a wireless emergency alert for severe thunderstorm warnings, you will only get it if the Weather Service has tagged that for 80 miles per hour or baseball size hail. And the reason that that's important is if you go back to when the Weather Service started putting wind and hail size specific tags on their severe thunderstorm warnings in 2010, Polk County has only hit that threshold 6 times. So for all intents and purposes, you're really not going to get a severe thunderstorm warning through a WIA. The 2020 derecho, August derecho, we would have, but this wasn't in place at that point. They hadn't gone to this, so it didn't even happen then. So again, when we talk about weather warnings, same thing for flash flood. The base flash flood warning you'll get on Alert Iowa, you won't get it on a WIA until it becomes really bad and we get to that sort of flash flood emergency level. So Alert Iowa still kind of retains an edge on the weather warning side, even though they both play in that space.
Yeah, Alert Iowa has a lot of great things about it. WIA has a lot of great things about it. But I should also mention some of the limitations. So we talked a little bit before about how not all users have an address associated with their account. For example, there was a message that went out recently to a city. I pulled the stats from that, and out of the 1,800 people the text message was sent to, only one of them had an account in that geofenced area. So that doesn't mean that the other 1,800 didn't live in that city. It just means they could have lived anywhere. So there was only one verified account. So that kind of limits our ability to geo-target. All of the landline phone calls that were made because of it were in that area, but that SMS text message wasn't able to be limited as much. So yeah, addresses that don't have, or sorry, phones that don't have an account, those are going to get everything. And the downside to that is if things don't apply to them, they might be opting out. We are working on ways to try and rectify this to get more people to have accounts. We have a plan tomorrow for severe weather awareness week. We'll be sending out a test message that has a link in it. And that link will encourage people to sign up, put their addresses in to get more relevant alerts. And it's just something that we are working on building. It will be better in the future. There are 14,000 people signed up for Smart 911. Again, those people also have to be on the list that we want them to receive the message for. So now there's a public safety list where before we only had kind of weather centered lists. This public safety list, it's new. It's already got 2,500 people on it. But that's out of the 14,000 it could be. So something we're working on every day. Yeah.
Talking about in Polk County, 14,000.
Yep, 14,000 in Polk County.
So as we kind of launch this new list and start to really push more outreach with it and try to get more people signed up, we'll get into some of the fine print and maybe where this is headed in the future. Kind of, we've got two systems going on. How do we balance them? How do we move forward? The biggest issue with Alert Iowa or an Alert Iowa message, when we go back to that geo-targeting, is it is wholly tied to those addresses you put in. It does not in any way connect to the GPS on your phone. So I've got my home address down by the airport in here. I could put in my work address. If I'm shopping at Costco in Ankeny this weekend and we get an Alert Iowa message from Ankeny, or they request one and we put one out and it gets pushed out, it is not going to get to me. Alert Iowa is going to have no idea that I am in Ankeny. It only goes to those addresses that say, hey, I spent a lot of time in here. So that's one thing to think of. It also, again, just like that, it's not going to go to another county. If I'm spending a lot of time, I commute to Ames, I've got to go in and put in that Ames address before I'm even going to have the option in my account to sign up for any Story County lists. And again, all of those messages are sent by Story County. They're not sent by Polk County. So there are some issues there with how your subscription travels, or really in this case, does not travel. It's tied to those addresses and it has no idea whether you're there or somewhere else. So that is probably the biggest restriction on Alert Iowa's. And that's where WIA starts to come in, and why I think probably a lot of times if we take a call from our responders and we start thinking about a message to send, we're leaning more and more toward WIAs.
Yeah, absolutely. So these are a great way to kind of rectify the limitations of Alert Iowa. We're not just stuck without a way to let the public know that there is some sort of emergency. They are geographically targeted. So you can target it down to, what is it, about like a city block?
Mhm.
There's a little bit of bleed over area. I think it's 0.1 miles, but it can be that accurate. And the newer the phone, the more likely that it's going to work correctly. Some older phones are just listening to see if a tower is sending one. So there may be a little bit of those, but those phones are getting phased out. The newer ones are coming in. You can send more information in it. You can do as little as 90 characters. 90 is the limit for, again, older phones, but newer phones let you do up to 360. You can add links. So if 360 isn't enough, put a link in it and they can go find more information. They are sent by authorized government agencies, so our 911 centers don't have direct access to do that. It's something that we do here at EMA. So if you want to request one, contact your 911 center, who will contact us, and we will get that sent. Along with the Amber alerts are sent by the state. Those will never be sent by us. But other imminent threats, so the weather stuff, that can happen, but then there's other things that can result from a weather event. So the National Weather Service is only going to send out that tornado warning. But if there is a gas line somewhere that's leaking because of the tornado, then we would be the ones to send to that area.
Talked about this kind of already. The WIA alerts, depending on your phone settings, will have a unique sound and vibration. If you have your ringer turned on, I think in most cases the default is it will make kind of that EAS type of sound like you would hear on the television. It will vibrate, and it kind of goes to your max vibration settings on there, so it's more than just your kind of usual ringer. And as Lynn said, you can't opt out of the presidential alerts. A little bit, Lynn started on this about how it works. It puts the messages on the tower. So wherever that warning box is drawn, any tower that has coverage on there receives the message. And then if your phone is connected to that tower, it gets it. The newer phones will GPS down below that, but that's how we get some of the overworn there. Is some of the older phones that are connected to a tower that touches that box will get it, but it can get almost down to level on the newest phones. Big thing is the fact that it's not limited by network congestion. So this relates back to a couple of different events that I can think of here in Polk County. When we have RAGBRAI in and we're expecting to have 30 to 50,000 people camping in one spot, we've got folks from the state fair here. If we get to an event where there's a huge amount of people crowded in and cell phone service is degraded, and we send something out by Alert Iowa, that comes as a standard SMS text. And if people aren't getting messages in and out, that Alert Iowa is stuck. It's going to be in there with the selfies and the TikToks and everything else, and it's backed up. WIA, as long as your phone is connected to the tower, even if you're not getting data in and out, this comes by an alternate path, and it will bypass basically all of that network congestion, and you will still get that wireless emergency alert. Did I explain that right?
Perfect. And in addition to this too, this kind of graphic is a pretty good example. So this one crosses counties. Alert Iowa cannot cross counties. So we've got a lot of communities that are in multiple counties. And if we send one in West Des Moines and want it to hit Jordan Creek, we can't get to them all. We would have to call Dallas County and have them send another one that matches that one. We have agreements with all of our surrounding counties that go both ways, that if we need to send one and it's going to cross the county line, we just have to notify them so they're not caught off guard. But those can be sent without the extra work of doing more than one. And that helps with communication. It helps make sure the message is standardized. It's just a much better way, especially in the metro when things are so blurry around the county lines.
So some of the strengths that we've kind of highlighted here for WIAs, again, because they are so powerful and they are in that opt-out, you're getting them whether you've asked for them or not, at least initially when you get your phone. They're reserved when we need immediate life-saving action that needs to be taken. So these are basically immediate, imminent threats that are already occurring or will be very, very shortly. They're not really for the future or something that's forecast here at this point. So ongoing and imminent severe threats only. They can reach local and visiting population. So again, I can go back to the fair. Polk County Alert Iowa messages are for Polk County people. You know, I don't know how many percent of people at the fair every day are not from Polk County, but I'm guessing it's most of them, some of those big days. So if we have some sort of emergency, whether it's on the fairgrounds or adjacent to the fairgrounds, and we need to get a message to all of these people that are visiting Polk County that aren't going to be in our Alert Iowa program, WIA is going to be where we're going to reach, because it's going to then hit those phones that are from out of town. The other big piece for this, and this is what we want to stress with our responders today, is that this is a great way not only to alert the public and push them to life-saving actions, but also to limit the exposure to our responders. If we need an evacuation from an area, whether it's a flood, whether it's hazardous materials, we've got a leak, we're at risk of explosion, the longer that our responders have to spend going door to door, the more that they're in danger. So if we can send out a WIA that hits all of those phones, again, you're going to have your own procedures on what you have to do for door-to-door stuff, but the faster we can help get those people moving or get the message out that, you know, we've got a law enforcement activity going here, we want you sheltered in place, that we don't want to force you to have to go and talk to every person in that neighborhood. We can help out there, and that's something we'd love to start to lean on.
Yeah, and to add on to that too, WIAs continue to be active the entire time that it is activated for. So it's not something that blasts out once and it's done. So for example, if you've got a gas leak and you have, you know, officers at every major street, but you don't have every single street covered, or maybe it's an area that has a lot of bike paths in it. If someone was not in the area when the WIA was originally issued, but they come into the area, they will then receive that alert. So that's something to think about too.
So just because they're at Hy-Vee and they missed the initial issuance, as long as it's still active, they'll pick it up when they get back home.
So we've used it in Alert Iowa in the past for events and had keywords for people to text into. That's not something that we are going to say that we need to stop doing, but it is something that we should probably look at what we really want our plan to be. Do we need to have WIA templates ready in case something happens? So then we're hitting everyone in the area, not just the people who texted to sign up, or people who are in the area but not even at the event, things like that. There's still value, again, like we said, with the weather stuff. So you can have those text pride to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then they would get those weather updates. So there's pros and cons to all of it, and it's just something that we need to work through a little more when we are setting these up for events in the future.
Yep, and it's something to think about if we are going to use it for an event. The more that we can get that out in promotional material ahead of time, the better participation we're going to get. If it's just a sign at the front door, people are gonna walk right by it. But like Lynn said, it's gonna help get us weather emergencies to out of town populations. But when we start talking about the downtown events or something, if it's a threat that's going to spill beyond those boundaries, then we don't want to necessarily just stop at the keyword. That's where we're going to have to maybe look at either a broader Alert Iowa message or a WIA message at that point.
So Alert Iowa messages are going to continue for the things that they have before, the weather, the missing persons, or other things that may not, they're still emergencies, but they may not rise to the level of a WIA. We still have that resource. We're still promoting it. We're trying to get more people into that public safety list that we didn't have before.
Another place that this fits in the plan, and sorry, the slide glitched out here and doesn't have the last sentence or two. A good example, we've had a couple of meetings and tabletop exercises this spring with Clive and Windsor Heights that have had lists for their flood response within Alert Iowa before. This is another good place where I think Alert Iowa can play a role. Once we get to actually needing to evacuate that immediate life safety emergent situation, we probably like to switch over to a WIA at that point. We don't want to just send it to somebody that said we want it. We want to get that word out to everybody. But early in that day or the night before, if we're getting to levels where we're starting to activate the lowest levels of that flood planning response, sending out an Alert Iowa message to the people in your community that you've promoted this to, that gives them a heads up that says, hey, we're at this level of the flood response plan. You live in evacuation zone. Review your plan. Know what you're going to do. That's a place where we can, I think, leverage some of these Alert Iowa lists and existing subscriber base. So as you start to think through emergency planning, think about that potentially as for Alert Iowa as maybe that pre or very beginning event before it becomes an emergency situation that you can spur people into the action and kind of preparedness steps there.
So we encourage people to talk about this, take it back to your people so they are familiar with it, because these can be requested 24/7. We can do these anytime. It's something that we'll review with you during the time, but we want to have as much in place. We're working on building templates, so this can be a quick action. I think before they just weren't totally understood. I've heard some feedback before from people that say, well, we would have sent an Alert Iowa, but there's not many subscribers. Okay, that's valid, but this event could have been a WIA. So this is something this is why we're having this lunch and learn. We want to get this information out. So, and there's great things coming with the WIAs too. So the ability to do silent WIAs, we don't currently have that right now, but by 2028, all of the vendors and cell phone companies are supposed to have the ability to send a silent WIA. So those would be things that, like an active shooter, do you want every person's phone going off during an active shooter event, or do you want something that's silent? Those are things that we'll have to work out in policy, but that option, or a missing person, may not rise to the level of needing to wake everyone in the area up at 4 a.m. But when they wake up, go about their day, they have the information, things like that. So silent WIAs are, I think, going to be a really great tool to add to this and be able to use WIAs more effectively.
So when it comes time that you need an emergency message sent out to the public, there are some pieces of information that we're going to need to know to put together a good message.
Yes. Number one is a local familiar authority. People need to know right away who the message is coming from. Number two, they need to know what is going on, what is happening, and what could happen if they don't take action. Number three is where. If it doesn't tell them where it's happening, then they may not react. Timing, they need to know when to take the action and then what to do. So all of these things, we try our hardest to scrunch into 360 characters. But they've done tons of studies on it. This is what's going to make people do more often than receive it and then want to search for more information. So if you don't have the who, they're going to wonder where it came from. They don't have that authority to say, what is this? And they don't know where to go if they do want to seek more information. So all of these.
So kind of an example message that we came up with. This is just a fictional situation, but we typed this up. This would be potentially an alert, but this is likely what we would put into a WIA. Ankeny Fire Department. So we've got our authority there. Gas main break has occurred in Ankeny near Prairie Ridge Townhomes at 11:10 a.m. Explosions, difficulty breathing, or asphyxiation are possible. Leave areas between Northeast 14th Street and Northeast Trillion Drive, north of Northeast 47th Street immediately and until further notice. More info we can put in a link there, and that gets them back to where they're at to follow up on this situation. But we've got an authority, we've got what's happening, what the consequences could be, time, what are we asking them to do, and where does this apply? So again, this again sent through a WIA would be targeted to that neighborhood. And for the most part, that's where it'll be. There'll be a little bit of bleed over, again, generally up to about 1/10 of a mile, but could be a little bit more for an older phone that's connected to a tower in the area. But hopefully that spurs some action and saves, again, our responders time from having to go door to door to door to door to door.
Yep. And then as the situation evolves, we'll be in contact with whoever sent or requested the initial WIA, because what's changing is the timeline that we originally had. Is that still in place? Or do we need to send this to a wider audience? And then what's big is when the threat is over. So if we ask people to evacuate, we'll send a follow-up message when the coast is clear, but if you've left the area, you're not going to get that WIA. So that's where our media partnerships are really important, because they can get that message out to say that it's safe to return. So we will still send it to that original affected area, but we need to have the media involved to get those.
And I can show an example of this right now. This is kind of an interesting website. It's warn.pbs.org, and this will show you every WIA that is active across the country. There's pretty much always usually one or two somewhere, sometimes more than others. And right now, this is a good example of just what Lynn was talking about. There's kind of a cancellation message here in Maine. They had a 911 outage, and it's working again. So anybody that got it, that said it was broken, they're going to get the follow-up that it's back operational again. If they left, once they come back into the box, they will get that. So we will certainly send that. One other example that I can go ahead and show that was from yesterday. Saw on the news the Port Arthur refinery explosion. And this is an example here where we've probably missed a few pieces, not to pick on anybody or call them out directly, but we've got our authority, police, shelter in place, west side of Port Arthur until further notice, but we don't necessarily have what the hazard is. Are there more instructions? So we're sheltering in place. Are we sheltering because there's an active threat in the area? There's a law enforcement response. Again, they are going to seek more information out, and from the videos, they probably felt the explosion, but would it be more useful if we put something in there like close your windows, shut off the air conditioning? You know, what are those kind of extra lines in there that we could use to make that just a bit better? That last 4 or 5% to really push it into greatness. If you do request a WIA, again, we'll walk through the 5 points. Either you reach out to dispatch, the PSAPs, they'll get in contact with the EMA duty officer. And if you've provided them the information, we might be able to get it straight from them. We likely will follow up and communicate with whoever is requesting that message to decide what's going to be most appropriate. We've gone through it, you know, what the level of threat to the public is, what the time of day is, what are we asking people to do? If it's a shelter in place and it's the middle of the night, yep, we'll probably go with an alert Iowa, not wake everybody up to say, stay in bed, don't go anywhere. What is the audience that we're targeting? Is it a local audience? Is it, again, if we're looking back toward those preparedness actions for flooding that might be occurring later in the day, you know, are we talking about a specific neighborhood where we know it's really going to be local people? Or are we talking about one of our big events and festivals? You know, We've got a lot of people that are going to be out of town or away from home that aren't going to be caught by that usual geofence. So those are some of the things that we would ask for to put this message together. So with that, it is now your time to talk. We can take any questions you've got, follow-ups, other ideas, and we can let you know what we've got for information. Lynn's been putting together our operational plan and policy. She's been working closely with Dallas County as well. So we continue to try to close some of the gaps that have existed for our communities that straddle that line, that we can make this as seamless as possible and with the least amount of road bumps when we do have to send messages that are going to two different county populations. But we'll open it up for any questions.
Is there a character limit on how big a?
So it depends on how you send the message. If you send it via text message, now they've opened that up. So Alert Iowa text message has opened up. There's the option to have more information via link, and that expands it
Yeah.
pretty great. Like there's a ton. You'd have to have a lot of information to not be able to. And in the WIA text message, it's not a text, but the message is either we create one that's 90 characters or 360. We do both in the same alert, and your phone, whatever is capable of, is what it will do. So most of them will show up with the 360 characters, and that does limit it to that 360. However, you can put a link in there so they can go straight from that message to receive more information.
Who operates the link?
That goes through us through our vendor. So we can if we've got additional information from Incident Command or whoever is in it, we can put it in there. It will go basically. It'll have like Alert Iowa branded wrapping. It'll look like its own page, but we can also put in there City of Clive, City of Ankeny.
But he sends a big page.
Yep.
Something. You can still it in and put a link.
Yep.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Yep. We can link it to something externally. We can just link it to a page where we need more. We'll generally, I think, on the Alert Iowas try to keep it to one text message, just so you don't end up getting them out of order and trying to piece it together. But circumstances, if we have to go a little bit over, we're not that completely hamstrung.
Not to muddy the waters, but on your slide where you were comparing the types of notifications that come out through Alert Iowa and also through WIA. WIA does send out some winter weather related notifications if they contain imminent threat situations, such as snow squalls.
Oh yes, snow squalls. Snow squalls would be the one that I missed on there. And again, that will follow the same kind of threshold as the flash flood warnings, where the base level it doesn't go, but if they put it up to a considerable. So again, depending on rush hour, cities, open areas, you can get snow squall warnings. I think we all got one this winter, came through.
Yep, December 28th.
Yep. I think I was in church and a bunch of us did not have our phones silent, but yeah, that was a fun wake up.
And
Both of you did this before, but maybe kind of highlight. I think the biggest confusion for those of us that even have been exposed to this for a while is the difference between a product, the vendor of the product, and how it's branded. And so you covered that earlier, and I think you did a great job, but maybe just a 30-second recap so that people understand those three differences.
Yes. So Alert Iowa is the entire program that the state of Iowa set up and gave us access to. So Alert Iowa is run by Rave Mobile, and Rave Mobile utilizes Smart 911 in the creation of the lists. So I don't know if I made things clearer or muddier, but
So the actual product that the public will be interacting with is their Smart 911 account. So it's going to be branded. We're going to say, hey, get an Alert Iowa, get Alert Iowa messages or Polk County alerts. They're going to use Smart 911 to manage their account, to change their subscriptions. I'm signed up for texts on tornado warnings. I'd never signed up for the rest of them because in my previous life, if there was a tornado warning, I was already at work. So I usually did not need to know about it. But if you wanted to get in and change from text to voice, if you want emails in there about things, this is where they would go to change and do that. This is where they would go to add another address in here. And if I wanted to add my parents' account in Fort Dodge, I type in their address here. And then when I go back into my opt-in, suddenly all of the lists that Webster County has set up, I would be able to enroll in at that point.
One more thing is if you could ask anybody here in this audience what they can do to help amplify the message or get the word out about how to get more people to sign up, or what actions people can take that this group can help amplify that message, if you can share that with us.
Yeah, sign up for Smart 911. You don't really even need to have the Polk County branding, especially if you aren't in Polk County. I know we have some surrounding county friends in here. But smart911.com, if they sign up from there, it's the same thing on the other side. So that portal is just the same. Like Brett said, they can put in whatever addresses and they will get the options for the list there. So.
And this is the perfect time to do it. Again, like we said earlier, the place where these messages through the Smart 911 Alert Iowa program really shine are with severe weather, because you can get that phone call that can wake you up in the night that way, and you get all of the messages, not just the most extreme ones. So with Severe Weather Awareness Week tomorrow, if you are enrolled in Polk County and you're signed up for the tornado list, at 10 o'clock with the statewide tornado drill, Lynn has scheduled a message that's going to go out to everyone on that tornado list, which I think is,
I think
that's
all lists. So
we might have done all lists, but even the tornado, that's closer to 10,000 than anything. You'll get a message in there. It will say something about the statewide tornado drill, and it'll have that link to go in and update your profile, add your address if you haven't in there to filter down to your specific location. So this is a perfect time to promote it in that way and ask for people to do that. And again, once they sign in, right at the top of the list will be that public safety list that we really want to focus on this year to try and grow, to have that as an additional tool. So with that drill tomorrow, it's the perfect carrot out there to say, hey, sign up and you're gonna get your first message at 10 o'clock tomorrow.
Brent, just another comment when you were talking about developing messages to send out, on the urgent need. When we started developing the WIA program over 20 years ago, we had a big debate over how much information to put in the message because we were so limited. Back then it was only the 90, and we thought we were really doing good when it went to 120, and now it's 360. But we kind of made the decision that the time to start telling people what they should do in order to shelter in place was not in the alert message. It was in the preparedness activities and things like that. So if you have to develop one of these messages for a situation in your area, don't spend time trying to educate the public at the same time you're trying to alert them. Get the news out so they can take action to protect themselves. Hopefully they've already been taught what to do.
Yep. Just like everything, a good planning, training and exercise program. Yeah, it has a lot of groundwork ahead of them that's got to be done. So yeah, the more we can push those preparedness messages and training before we get to that, the better.
The geofenced areas, is that something that you all build and maintain in-house? Is there a vendor you work with for that?
Yep, go ahead.
So we have them built based off the GIS maps that the different 911 centers send us for the cities. We do have all of those pre-built and those are updated when they send them to us. But we can build them on the fly. So if there's something happening at a certain address, we can build either like a polygon around it or do like a radius around it. So it can be done either way.
So yeah, specifically when we get into like a law enforcement situation, like you said, a radius, or if we have hazardous materials, yeah, we can do the radius. We can even refine it. Like I said, if we want to draw a polygon and draw it bigger one direction for wind, that can all be custom. So that's another piece of information that as we kind of felt out with whoever was requesting what they need. Yeah, do you want this to go to a city boundary, to a bigger area? And we do have a good deal of flexibility there. Well, I don't see any other questions, but feel free to finish up your lunch or your drink, chat amongst yourselves. We'll be here. Any other questions you've got offline, but thank you for your participation.